Now we are recording.
Broadcasting the boisterous part of the fastest game in the world. Strap on your lids and lace them up, Rook. You're listening to the BarnChirpers Hockey Podcast. Take a lap.
Yeah.
Clap
it up, boys.
Clap it up. Showing off my reverse retro pucks that I've obtained from my barn journeys. Justin rocking the old cap, the old oil. Perfect timing for that, since we're going to be talking about the Edmonton Oilers today, and the Columbus Blue Jackets, and the Detroit Red Wings, and
Dallas Stars.
Dallas Stars. Yeah, they're so forgettable because they just blow it anyway. So welcome to the, as you said, you heard there, we're the BarnChirpers. You can follow us. You can like us. You can chirp at us at BarnChirpers Pod. Let us know your thoughts on any of our past episodes. You can submit questions. You can talk crap to us. We love that. We love to chirp back and forth. You can tell us that we're dumb and our takes are stupid too. We're not going to get offended. It's 2023. We're going to have a good conversation about it. So whatever you want to do at BarnChirpers Pod, and please, at the very least, even if you don't really like us that much, but how could you not like us? Please like, subscribe on your iTunes, on your Spotify's, on every other podcasting platform that you're listening to us right now. Give us a 5-star. Just a quick little hey, this is awesome. It'll take you 2 seconds so we can get to the very top, be the President's Trophy of hockey podcasts, so we can let your and our Norfolk Admirals, let them know that we are a fantastic hockey podcast, and we want to be part of their team so they can be on our team, so we can all be on the same team. You feel me?
Oh, I feel you, eh? And I'm wearing the C today. I'm wearing the great one. Probably one of the greatest first linesmen of all time. That's a very clunky way for me to say, let's get the first line out there.
Let's get it out there. But first, I just want to comment and say that is a clean looking sweater. I don't like the oil sweater on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really care for the color scheme, but seeing you rock it, not even being biased because you're my friend, but it looks clean. I like it. I have a new appreciation for it.
Yeah, dude. They've gone through so many iterations. I think the current look and this look are the best. With the majority blue, they had a primary orange, which is, I love orange, but orange is definitely best as a secondary color, and it's just, this is a great use of the orange. And
I agree. And we're kind of getting into a Gear Freaks podcast here. Shout out to the Gear Freaks there, since you are a Gear Freak. But was the orange like a lighter orange at some point? I can't even recall, but
they went to a darker blue, and it was this same, in the 2000s somewhere. I think they went to a darker blue and a lighter orange, and it was this same design, and I didn't like that. And then they went to the weird oil cog that went across. I didn't like that either. This is definitely their best look, and it's the one that they're wearing currently. And to me, it's simple. And with hockey sweaters, the simpler the better most of the time. And that's how I like my Edmonton Oilers.
Agreed. I'm looking at it right now. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I remember this now. Okay.
It was like a dimmer orange, and it might have been the darker blue that made the orange look dim. But I look, man, I'm
the mess.
Mm-hmm.
Those ones.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's the same sweater that you're wearing right now, but it's brighter. It's that brighter orange.
Yeah.
Weird. Okay. Anyway, enough about Gear Freaks. Like you said, let's get that first line out here. Right?
So you sent this the other day. Daily Faceoff put out a Instagram post. What if there was no draft lottery? And we kind of touch on this conversation every once in a while, because Connor Bedard this year obviously goes to Chicago. If there's no draft lottery, he's not there, right?
He'd be in Anaheim. Yep.
So there's definitely worse teams. And I thought it was interesting when you shared this, and maybe we'll talk about it further, but I wanted to go over some of the ones that Alex Lafreniere in 2020 would have been a Detroit Red Wing, which is okay. And then here's where
he hasn't really produced anyway, so I don't know if that would have really truly made a difference. Maybe it would, being in Detroit with that younger crew, but he hasn't lived up to being a first round draft pick anyway. So.
Not at all. Yeah. So I don't think that changes much. I mean,
they probably would have flipped him anyway. Detroit. Yeah.
I was going to say, like, maybe it lowers the standards, like him being in New York, you kind of hope and expect for more out of him, but you're still the number one pick.
Yeah. He's still number one pick. He was touted to be not necessarily superstar status, but he was like to be first round guy. Like he was touted to, have first round draft pick numbers, and he just hasn't ever lived up to that. And I think at this point, New York, I don't know, they've just spent so much time on him where they keep waiting for him to be that guy. And now it's just like, well, we've waited this long, so now we might as well just stick it out.
Yeah.
Whereas had he gone to Detroit, I feel like they would have flipped him after 2 years. They would have gotten rid of him. But that's a longer conversation that we've devoted now to Alex Lafreniere than he deserves.
It's true. 2019, the year before, this is already starting to alter my timeline, and it makes me upset. 2019, Jack Hughes ends up in Ottawa as a Senator instead of with my New Jersey Devils. Right. Boy, oh boy, do I hate that.
Yeah, you would have ended up he could have potentially been crossed over and played with DeBrincat.
Yeah.
He could have he'd be playing with Claude Giroux. Well, I guess that trade didn't happen until a couple of years. He would probably still be there though.
Yeah, he would still be there.
And Ottawa. Yeah, they would have just re-signed him.
They might not have made that move for Giroux if they had, because you've already got Stützle. I don't think Stützle is your top line center, but
Jack Hughes and Brady Tkachuk.
Oh, gross.
That's
against me. I don't like it.
Yeah. In Ottawa, speaking of young guys, we were talking about Detroit, we know Ottawa, you just said Stützle. Brady Tkachuk, if Jack Hughes was there, Shane Pinto. I'm drawing a blank right now. But
Batherson's still there, right?
Batherson, yeah. There you go. Dude, what a young squad. That would definitely have implications if he was drafted to Ottawa.
Imagine they do keep him and they do get Giroux. That's nasty 3 centers. Giroux.
Yeah, you have three 1A centers.
Mm-hmm. And I know they have somebody else that is just outside of my periph for some reason. But
I can't think either. I had a couple of sends over the last couple of years on fantasy. I just can't recall right now because brain and stuff. But this one is probably one of the. I would say this one is the most interesting to me. Not the most. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's out of 2, 4, 6, 8. Out of these 8 ones that were listed, this is top 4 of that would be very interesting to me had that happen.
Absolutely. I think you're definitely looking at a different Ottawa Senators club.
Josh Norris.
That's exactly who I was thinking of. Number 9.
You would have 4 first line centers on your team. That is unheard of.
That's ridiculous.
Ottawa would definitely be I have very good indication that Ottawa would be a very, very different team had Jack Hughes been drafted in 2019 to Ottawa, which again, why I said out of the 8 listed, this is easily, now that I just remember Josh Norris, easily top 3 out of 8. This is the biggest what if.
Yeah. Speaking of my boys and centers, our top line center guy, Nico Hischier, was the number 1 pick in 2017. If there was no draft lottery, he would be in Colorado with the Avalanche.
Yeah, I don't, I'm not taking anything away from your cap or anything. I don't necessarily know if that really would have made a big difference out in Colorado. I don't think they necessarily would have won the cup any sooner.
No.
He's a solid player. He's a solid centerman. But yeah, I don't think they necessarily would have sped up Colorado's timeline to win.
No, I agree. Obviously I love the guy. He's our cap. I think he produces well in New Jersey. He's top line. He is a top line center. But I do think that he's not franchise altering for anybody but us.
Yeah.
Like, we were the perfect team for him to land on.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think he changes Colorado's timeline at all.
Like, again, if we're ranking out of 8, that's 7 or 8 on the list to me.
Because 8's got to be Laffy, right?
Yeah. I'd say Laffy is 8 for sure. This would be 6 or 7 to me. Yeah,
and then we'll get to some of these other ones here. I'm going to do these back to back because they'd be years back to back, and I think these two in combination makes this squad interesting. In 2014, Aaron Ekblad. In 2015, Connor McJesus would both be Buffalo Sabres.
This is and while Ekblad is number one D guy. He does so many things. While he's not necessarily going to get you 100 points in a season and win the Norris for offensive production, but he very well could win. He very well could win the Norris any year since he's been in the league for his defensive, what he does. And then, like you said, getting if the Sabres would have got Connor McDavid, bro. I say that I don't necessarily think that they would have won the cup at all with having Ekblad and McDavid, because obviously, as we know, Draisaitl was 16, I believe. 16 Draisaitl got. I'd have to look into that for sure. Right. I feel like it was a year or two after McDavid. But either way, because in those years we've talked about on this show before too, Buffalo's management and head coaching position, it was just kind of a weird time in Buffalo, right? It was a weird time. So would those two pieces have changed anything? Hard to say. Obviously, there's only a what if question, but having those two pieces, and then all of a sudden, what came in the following years after that, a couple years after that, Rasmus Dahlin, Tage Thompson, so many. I can't even think of all the guys that came in. So
Owen Power.
Yeah. I mean, dude. So it would. I feel like it could have increased or sped up their timeline a little bit to the point where they're at now. Like, I don't see they would have won a cup in 2018. No, I don't think that, because there were so many other factors contributing to the struggles of the Sabres. But they definitely so obviously we're just playing the what if game, but 2019, 2020, they could have very easily been in the position where they're at now as a competitive on the cusp team.
And I mean, since we're doing full on what if these draft picks makes them more patient with Eichel? And
that too. Yeah, I totally forgot about Eichel. Yeah.
What if Eichel actually suits up and
Eichel and McDavid together?
Well, and then I mean, this doesn't even get obviously we could bring up the rosters, but guys like Dylan Cousins and I was
just gonna say Cousins too.
There's just, and I mean, obviously they still have a goalie issue, but like you said, I think this puts them by now. By this year they're probably in cup contention as opposed to one of the more exciting teams in the league.
And again, I totally forgot about Eichel, but dude, what you said, I mean, that just. Since we're playing the what if game, having McDavid there, that would have totally taken the pressure off Eichel too, to be the guy. Yeah. Because McDavid could have been the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, they were drafted the same year. So it wouldn't have worked anyway. If Buffalo got McDavid, Eichel would have went to Edmonton.
Yeah.
So it would have been switched anyway. But let's just say, for purposes, it did work out when they were both on the same team. Like, yeah, the pressure would have been off. You know,
he would have been Draisaitl. He would have been 1A.
Yeah, it would have been interesting for sure. So that one, I'm to group those two together. So we'll say out of these 7, right? Laffy's 7, Jack Hughes is 5'6", or I'm sorry, Heischer is 5'6". This one I think is number 1 to me. I think this is 1.
I think so because you have 2 like just top tier dudes who completely go elsewhere, and this absolutely speeds up Buffalo's timeline. Again, does you could argue whether they're in cup contention this year or not. That's a conversation, a bigger conversation, but they're absolutely where they are right now a couple seasons ago.
Agreed.
This next one's interesting too, because a team that drafted Nico Heischer in this timeline wouldn't have drafted Nate McKinnon in 2013, would be a Florida Panther, friend.
Yeah, I think this one's kind of, it would definitely be big for sure. You'd have McKinnon and Barkov playing together. Oh, yeah. That's an interesting combination there. Barkey, while I feel like never has really lived up to being like a superstar, but he's always been good. He's always been solid. Like, and put him with a guy like McKinnon. I think this goes to the same conversation of like, maybe their timeline is sped up a little bit where, get to the cup finals and lose. But, to chirp the Panthers a little bit, we love you, Florida. But yeah, I don't necessarily think that draft makes them cup champions. But it would be, like I said, interesting to have 2 superstars on the same roster.
Yeah. Obviously all of these alter the teams that they end up going to, but like,
of course, yeah.
I do think
this is obviously talking about too, like playing now, he'd be playing with Barkov if he was still a Florida Panther.
Right. And so I think this one, obviously Heischer to Colorado affects New Jersey in a big way. But I think obviously if Florida drafts McKinnon, it hurts Colorado bigger than.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, just to hit that regular timeline. Speaking of these next 2 are both you and Corey's teams histories being altered or futures being altered. In 2007, Patty Kane would have been a Philadelphia Flyer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm looking at the roster in 2007 of the Philadelphia Flyers, and if Corey was here, he'd be able to talk a little bit more on it because I don't really know a lot of these names. But so, Patty Kane and Claude Giroux.
Okay.
Patty Kane and Darian Hatcher. I mean, obviously Hatcher is on the back end, but I mean, he was a solid D guy. Patty Kane and Sammy Kapanen. That's a familiar name. Sammy Kapanen and Jim Dowd, journeyman himself. Patty Kane and Simone Gagne. That's a notable name. Patty Kane and Jeff Carter. That's just a funny. But Patty Kane, and these are interesting names that he could have been line mates with. Mike Richards, Danny Briere, Mike Knuble.
Oh.
So those are interesting.
I think if Corey was here, I think the most notable thing that would change is Philly played Chicago in the Cup in 2010, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about
right. And every time Patty Kane comes up, I don't remember what happened in 2010, but Corey hates Patty Kane because of 2010. I don't know if it's just because the Hawks beat the Flyers, but if Patty Kane is on the Flyers and not the Hawks, does that cup change?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, obviously, you also had all those other pieces in that cup.
Right.
Johnny Taves on the back end, Seabrook. You had Sharpie. You had he just retired. He was an oil D guy. He just retired.
Oh no.
Duncan Keith.
Yes, Duncan Keith. Yes, I remember.
You know, so you know, there's a lot of other factors too, but it's interesting. It definitely is interesting where he would have landed, and if he would have stayed in Philly too, it goes the same thing. If he would have stayed in Philly, you know.
Yeah, that's because do they fail, and does he end up getting dealt off before that instead of staying like he did in Chicago after all those cups?
Right.
That's an interesting one. Now let's really get to the heart of the matter here, Joe, because this one would have affected you, friend. In 2004, Ovi is a Pittsburgh Penguin instead of a Washington Capital.
Ugh,
of all things, right?
Gross. That's disgusting. But I mean, you know what? Essentially, OV would have landed on a similar team that he came into. Truly.
Yeah.
There wasn't really anybody. I'm looking at the Penguins roster from 2004. Like, there's nobody other than Flower, you know, like all-star goaltender. There's really nobody else that he would have been, you know, paired up with, which essentially ends up being the same situation that he came into truly in Washington. So overall, yes, gross. I hate that. I hate everything about that. But, well, actually, I take it back. I mean, I still would hate it. I'm just thinking, though. Ovi ended up coming in with Peter Bondra, and he ended up getting to play with Jaromir Jagr. So, yeah, this would be terrible. This would be terrible if he was a Penguin. He would have missed out on playing with legends.
What year does Crosby come into the league?
The year after, I believe.
So, are we looking at Ovi and Crosby on the same team?
Yeah. Theoretically, yeah. Theoretically, they'd be on the same team. So you'd get essentially, well, you'd get two Connors. Well, no, I mean, Sid actually kind of models himself. Leon models himself after Crosby, essentially, now.
Right.
Like, they're similar, dishing the puck, you know, to everybody. So you essentially would have McDavid and Draisaitl, but it'd be the Penguins.
Pass. I hate this alternate timeline. I hate it with a passion.
Don't love it.
But
okay,
like,
what's that?
In the grand scheme of things, like, how league altering is it other than that, right? Like,
no, yeah, it's
specifically.
I mean, pretty most of the scenarios, like, is all league altering. So, yeah, I mean, do we want to group rank this? If we say Laffy is last, 7
easily, yeah.
If we're grouping the Sabres together, so Laffy is last, Nico 6,
yeah, probably, yeah.
McKinnon 5,
yeah. Maybe Patty
4.
This is where it gets interesting.
I think so. I would say Jack. Well, Jack could easily be 2, but if I was going to say number 1, definitely Connor Ekblad. Connor and Ekblad is number 1 to me.
Absolutely.
2 is a toss up between Jack and Ovi, because, like we just said, Ovi and Sid could have potentially ended up being on the same team, which is just mind blowing.
Worst possible timeline.
But I think, well, so I'm going to say this. Number one, Connor McDavid and Ekblad, the grouped Buffalo Sabres. I'm actually going to go Jack Hughes number 2 because Jack Hughes going to the Ottawa Senators. Obviously, this is a fantasy booking, if you will. But Jack Hughes going to the Senators in 2019, there's actually a lot more promise in a what-if scenario, him being on the Ottawa Senators, than if Ovi did get drafted by the Pittsburgh Penguins in 2004. There's no saying that because, Pittsburgh won the draft lottery to get Sid.
Mm-hmm.
So, would they have been last? They got this theoretical pick because they were last, right? They had first overall pick. So they had Ovi that year, theoretically, in 2004. Would they be last again? You know what I mean? So I'm going to put that one at 3.
Yeah. Also,
there's a lot more in this what-if scenario, a lot more promise in Jack Hughes being on the Ottawa Senators of things that you could actually see happen. Ovi on the Penguins in 2004, there's a lot more of far-fetched what-ifs, I believe.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about my guy.
Yeah. Well, and plus the Pens, even in the actual history, in the actual timeline that we are in, won a couple cups. So, what's the difference? Do they win a couple more? Maybe. The one
Sid and Ovi. I mean, I feel like they get 6.
Yeah, maybe possibly.
And Flower, geez.
But I guess ultimately we're losing probably for sure Washington's cup in 2018, right? Because I don't think you replace Ovi with something that gets you anything near. But I mean, if nothing else, this is an interesting mind topic. If you guys like it, we can explore this further with with some time and research. If this is something that interests you guys, we'd love to dive into this some more.
We've actually, for everybody listening, all of us, the whole group has talked about doing it altering past playoff things. What if, the number 9 team actually made them into the wild card, stuff like that. Excuse me. Wow, so burpy today. We've talked about that. So if you're interested in that, chirp us at BarnChirpers Pod. You can even answer how was this episode on Spotify, iTunes, all that stuff. If you'd like to see more fantasy booking, if you will, what if scenarios, we'd love to talk about that and stuff. If you're into that. That's
right. I think we need to do some 5-on-5 here. Yeah.
Yeah, we're let's do it, man. Let's get some even strength. Let's get into the meat and potatoes. I'm ready to start the grill. You know what I mean? If you will.
Starting the grill in Columbus, baby. The Columbus Blue Jackets are on the docket. And look, I don't want to say I'm super excited for the Blue Jackets, but they've made moves. And I will say this.
And before you even say that, I'm going to say I have nothing prepared today for our Would You Rather and Plus Minus, because I feel like last week I thought way too much about what I was going to ask you, and it didn't come off as great as I wanted it to. I felt like it was really easy. So I'm just winging it again today, because I felt like that first week was the best week when I just winged it. So
there you go.
Speaking of winging it, we're going to talk about the Detroit Red Wings later on. So it makes sense. Right. But also, you have to make sure you answer your own question too, because you didn't do that every time last week.
Did I not?
Not every time. Two out of 4, you answered your own question. I was writing down the stats and stuff. I'm like, Justin didn't answer. He was holding it tight to his chest. Anyway, Columbus.
They've made some moves, and we've talked about this on this show when we were trying to set up the roadie. We've talked about this on Gear Freaks ad nauseum. This is one of those teams that why do they exist? And this needs to be a year that they prove that they belong in this league, I feel. And they've made the moves. So
they've made quite a number of moves. They got a new coach, Mike Babcock, which we've talked about before on the show. And I definitely wasn't happy about that pick at the time we talked about it. But I've myself have moved into let's see what happens.
Right.
because Columbus has made some other moves. They brought in your guy, Sivo. They brought in another guy that we don't necessarily have to talk about from across from another country. That's not very nice. Anyway,
Yeah.
they brought in who else did they bring in? I forget.
Actually, at this point, I do too. I feel like they brought in a goalie somewhere, but
But anyway, they've done some things. They've done some things. So
yes.
we're looking forward to it.
So I want to start here. Last season's big signing was Johnny Hockey. They bring in Johnny Hockey, big contract, and for some reason I thought that he was a disappointment. And if your name is Johnny Hockey,
Yeah.
For some reason I thought he was hurt or something. But I'm looking at his stat line: 80 games played, 21 goals, 53 assists. He was on the ice.
Yeah, he was on the ice. He just didn't perform.
He didn't perform.
I mean, that can be, the team you're around as well,
Which brings me to my would you rather. So Johnny Gaudreau, as I mentioned, 80 games played, 21 goals, 53 assists, 74 points, plus minus of negative 33.
Dash 33.
Yuck. But the second player just underneath him is Patrik Laine, 24-year-old winger. Plays only in 55 games, 22 goals, 30 assists for 52 points. So does that contribute to Gaudreau's a little down year? We got a 20-point drop there between number 1 and number 2. So, Joe, I ask you, would you rather Gaudreau show up as the guy he's supposed to be? Let's see Johnny Hockey, 100 points plus. Let's see him be the number 1 guy. Or would you rather Patrik Laine at least match what Gaudreau's doing, and the two of them both have a 74 over, to 80 point season?
This is actually pretty simple for me to answer. I'm going to go with Laine actually being able to equal whatever Johnny Hockey puts out, because I'm looking at Johnny Hockey's stats for his career, and besides the couple of shortened seasons that the NHL had, he's essentially going to get you at least 70 points. In the shortened season, he was on pace for about 90 points. So, he's going to show up for at least 70 points. Whereas Laine does not have the same, and we've talked about Patrik Laine before as well. So I would rather Patrik Laine actually show up and produce like he was touted to produce. And we've talked about that on this show before as well. So if Johnny Hockey's going to get me at least 74, I would love to see Patrik Laine one time in his career get 74 points.
Yeah.
He has not done that.
Yeah. I am wholeheartedly with you. Corey definitely has a place in his heart for Laine.
I don't know why.
I don't.
I really don't understand it, because he's like a second line. He's a second, third line guy to me. He doesn't do anything for me.
But that's just it. Like, this guy was touted as some first line guy, and if I'm Columbus, Johnny Hockey's going to get me that 75 to 80. Hopefully he makes that next jump. But I would much rather have Laine play up to what he's supposed to be doing. Like, show me that you can do that 70 to 75, and maybe in him doing that, maybe that's what Johnny Hockey needs to get to his next level. I would much rather have Laine producing at what he was touted as than underproducing and hoping Johnny Hockey becomes like the guy.
Agreed. Yeah. Okay, so new coach, like we talked about, Mike Babcock is in town. You brought in, while I don't want to give him any flowers at all, but they brought in Ivan Provorov, who is a solid defenseman. He is. He is a solid player. and he's going to put up some points for you as well. They brought in your guy, Sivo, right? So you got a pretty stacked back end.
Mm-hmm.
So plus or minus, Justin. Actually, I need to preface this first. So Columbus had 59 points last year. They were second worst in the league, as we know, because they were in the draft lottery, slotted in at number 2, and then all of a sudden they ended up at number 3. Weird. So second worst in the league. So plus or minus, Justin. Like I said, they had 59 points. Let's see. So that was second. Sorry, I'm doing a little math real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So fifth place, fifth worst in the league was Montreal. They had 68 points. So plus or minus, Justin, 70 points for Columbus. So essentially, if we're talking about last year numbers, that would be sixth worst in the league.
So they need 11 points to get there.
11 points. So basically five more wins and an overtime loss.
Did the moves that they made get them 5 wins? And is there a team that got worse than them?
So while you think about that, the other teams in that pool, if you will, Montreal in order: Montreal, San Jose, Chicago, then Columbus, Anaheim. So Montreal, San Jose, and Chicago and Anaheim is what you're thinking about.
Okay.
Also, sorry, I'm throwing a wrench in there because I did say 70 points. Arizona had 70 points last year. So we're Arizona, Montreal, San Jose, Chicago, and Anaheim.
See, the only team I feel like got, and we'll talk to them when we get to them, is the Sharks. Has Columbus gotten better than Montreal? We'll get to them. Have they gotten... I feel the same way about them as I feel about when we talked about Arizona. Like, I'm excited that they made the moves. You know what I mean? I'm excited to see that they're alive, that they're a club. But do I think that they're definitively 5 games better? No. I think I'm going to go with the under. I think when you bring up that list of teams, I don't know that they got better than any of those teams. I hope I'm wrong for Columbus's sake, but I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into Columbus and their history and not the team that they're putting on the ice. Like I said, I hope I'm wrong, but I'm going to go with the under.
What would you want to put an actual number on that? I guess.
All right. So if they're 59, I'm going to go close. I'm going to go 68 points.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go with the over just by 1. I'm going to say 71 points because they had, and I agree with everything that you said too, so I'm not going to say the same thing, but they had 9 overtime losses. And I feel like with a coach like Mike Babcock, who's a little bit more hard-nosed, I feel like that type of coaching can at least get you 4 of those wins from overtime. Like, not obviously, we know when you go to overtime, anything can happen, but it doesn't say what shootouts. So some of those might have been a shootout too, and we know if you go to a shootout, that's even more odds of like what's going to happen. But I think with a new coach, you can get at least 4 wins from there, and I feel like the other wins are possible compared to the other teams that we talked about. So I'm going to say 71 points. So I'm going with the over 71 points.
Bold, friend.
It's very bold. Like, it is a bold. You might as well call that a bold prediction for Columbus. Columbus Blue Jackets. Bold prediction.
All right. So my plus minus. This is probably going to be easy in reality, but they had a draft or a very high draft pick. They were in the lottery. They end up with Adam Fantilli from the University of Michigan. I believe he's actually on the club next year, if I recall correctly. So
yeah, I believe he signed an entry-level contract. Yep.
Yep. So his stat line last year at the University of Michigan, 36 games played, 30 goals, 35 assists for 65 points. Let's take a couple off of that automatically just because we're making the leap from NCAA to NHL. Let's bring that down to a plus or minus points for Adam Fantilli, 55 points.
I am excited to see what this kid does. And also, and what I believe we mentioned on the show before, he's, again, you just said it, a Michigan guy. There's a lot of Michigan guys on this team. So maybe they mold and gel really well together. Do I think it's possible that he could get more than 55 points? Yes, I do think it's very possible. But I'm going to go with the under just because we are talking about Columbus and the same idea of when we talk about the Edmonton Oil, that comes up a lot. I'll believe it when I see it, type of a thing. So, again, a lot of props to Columbus and what they've done so far this offseason, but I'll believe it when I see it that this kid can actually do something. Because he would have been number one if it wasn't Connor Bedard in the draft. He was touted to be, if Connor wasn't here, he would have been number one. So, essentially, we're talking about the same skill level. So, I'm going to go under, but just to 50. I'm going to say 50 points.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, and for all the same reasons. Columbus has got to show me something, and this is what this season is. You know, you made the moves. Now show me that wasn't just lip service. Show me that you guys are an NHL club and do something.
I mean, again, talking about Johnny Hockey, like Johnny Hockey would be the guy to get him the puck. You know? So Patrick Laine, in theory, could get this kid the puck, or vice versa. The kid could set up Patrick Laine if he's actually working hard, crashing the net, trying to get a goal. Just saying. Okay. So I guess since you already brought up Adam Fantilli, I'm gonna say this. All right. So let's just do this. We already talked about Columbus was second to last year. So let's say Adam Fantilli does play a full season, okay? 82 games. Well, yeah, 82 games, right? Usually somebody sits at least once sometimes. So anyway, he plays a full season. So would you rather Adam Fantilli plays the full season, has a pretty decent showing. Let's just say he does get 55 points. We'll just say that. So would you rather Adam Fantilli plays the full season, has a good showing, but Columbus ends up in last place?
Oh, no.
Or Adam Fantilli gets hurt in his rookie season, but Columbus makes a big jump and you end up, let's say, 15th in the league.
Woof. This one's way harder than anyone might be thinking, because my heart says, God, you don't want to see the kid get injured, but he is a kid. He's 18. He's young. And you want to see that progression. Getting into the playoffs says, well, shoot, anything better than fifth worst in the league shows that bringing in Babcock was the right call, and the moves he made, that's the right call. The team's going in the right direction. And you can slot in Fantilli next year, assuming he recovers from the injury. But on the other hand, do you want to see that the kid is worth that number 3 pick? God, man, I hate to wish an injury on a kid, but I think I got to go with the injury and the progression, because if you're Columbus, like I said, like we're wondering, why are they in this league? They never do anything. Mm-hmm. They never do anything. And this shows me that the team is moving in the right direction. And give me Fantilli at full health next year. He'll only be 19, and let's go from there. And now he's got a better team around him. So, God, don't get hurt, Fantilli, please. don't make me wish that on you. But I think of the two options, that's what I'd rather have.
Yeah, that's it was a terrible ask by me, for sure. That's just the deepest, darkest pits of my soul there. We never wish to get anybody to get hurt. It's just a fantasy thing. And I do agree with you because we finally see some progression in Columbus. But I'm going to go with the former, that Fantilli shows up, but Columbus ends up being the worst team in the league because while we want to see progression, but your number one guy essentially just got hurt, and we're going to lose out on another draft lottery pick.
Yeah.
So, which honestly, as we know, they could be the worst team in the league and still not get the first overall pick because
that's true. Chicago will get it next year.
As we know how things shake out in the NHL. Thank you, Gary Bettman. You know what you are. I'm not going to curse on this show. So yeah, I'd rather have Fantilli show up, show that he is worth it, but Columbus just can't win. Which, obviously that makes things a lot more difficult for that franchise. But yeah, I'd rather see the progression come from getting another high draft pick.
Yeah, because at least then with that scenario, maybe you finally move on from Line. Maybe somebody takes him off your hands.
Yeah,
you're a seller at the deadline, so maybe you have a couple pieces that people will take. I assume you hold on to Johnny Hockey, but I think you've got something with Fantilli, and then you get probably a lot. You obviously get a lottery pick in the next year's draft, so somebody to play alongside. Yeah. Somebody to play alongside Fantilli. So Godspeed, Columbus. I hope neither of those happen for your franchise. A please and a thank you.
Yes.
Shall we move on to the Dallas Stars there, Joe?
Let's move on to the heart of Texas, Dallas Stars. I picked them. I put money on them to win the Stanley Cup, and they didn't do that.
They were one of the best clubs in the league, though. You can't take that away from them.
They were. No, I don't take anything away from them. I mean, I'm waiting to get that Jason Robertson sweater. He's my guy. I mean, that top line: Rupe Hintz, Jason Robertson, and Pav, Captain America. You can't go wrong with that top line. So, speaking of, moves, they didn't really make a whole lot.
No, they didn't.
They actually lost Max Domi, so they might have gotten incrementally worse by losing a guy like that. They did bring in Matt Murray, not the mustache Murray, but the other Matt Murray he's just a draft pick guy. Not the same Matt Murray. But I don't necessarily think they got worse, truly. Oh, they did bring in Matt Duchene, so
that's a good pickup.
That could bring you some more scoring. So why don't you go ahead and kick things off there, my guy?
Well, look, anybody who listens or watches this program knows I have a thing with tendies, and Dallas had one of the best tendies in the game with Otter. So how do you not start there? First of all, I didn't realize he was that young, 24. He is still young, friends.
Still a baby.
So for him last season, 62 games played, 61 started, 37-11 is his record. 144 goals against, right? So I'm going to go with a plus minus here. He starts 61 of their 82 games, and 37 wins, plus or minus 37 wins for Otter next year, Joe.
I think last year just so many things went right for Dallas, and I love Otter. I agree with everything that you said. I mean, top tier. I feel like
Oh, I think you froze up.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I, live on air had a little sneeze there. Sorry about that. So what I was trying to say is that I agree with everything you said about Otter being top tier goaltender. I just feel like starting 61 games or 62 games last year definitely showed its face in the playoffs when he all of a sudden couldn't show up. Right? He had they had trouble. I mean, we were talking about the Kraken, and we'll get to them. But he had trouble putting them away when he was lights out the first two rounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that because he was tired? Is that because the Kraken is as good as we think they are? Hard to say for sure. But I'm going to go with the under 30. You said 37 wins, right?
Yeah, 37.
I'm going to go under, but not by that many. I'm just going to go under. I'm going to say 30 wins because I believe he's probably – I feel like they should bring him down to maybe like 45 starts and split it up a little bit more because they are a playoff team. They will probably make the playoffs. Give him time to be rested in the season. So when you get to the playoffs, if you're not going to do the tandem thing and just run him in the playoffs, he still has some energy left for the playoff run. So I'm going to go under, not because I don't think he necessarily can do it, but because I think they need to take his games back a little bit. And I'm going to say, what did I say? 30. What did I say? 30. Did I say 30?
Maybe it was 33.
33. Okay. 33. I'm going to say
I hope I didn't just change your answer.
We'll lock it in as 33 because he's going to start 45, 46 games. So I'm going to say 33.
So to that point, I think I agree with you. Wedgwood started 18 games. So Wedgwood has some, a good couple of years on Otter. And like you mentioned, we got the other Matt Murray who started 3 games. So maybe Murray can see a few more games. He's the same age. So maybe Murray gets, 5 to 10 just to take some of that weight off of Otter.
We grew up, this is talked about a lot. We grew up in the days where you just rode a tender. Like there was no tandem thing. Mm-hmm. You just rode a tender and then boom, you play him in the playoffs too. But it's just it's such a new age with sports across the board with having more knowledge now about recovery and more knowledge about, like volume of games played. And, hockey is one of the most, we've talked about this before too, like the most physical sport that there is. Mm-hmm. So, we've talked about how much weight Bob loses every single game because he's so like being a goalie takes a lot out of you too. So I just feel like, again, we just become more knowledgeable every single day in the field of recovery and like keeping athletes healthy, that playing him 60 games again this year after what we saw in the playoffs, it's kind of a no-brainer. Like take his games down a little bit. And like you just said, 2 other serviceable goaltenders to get the job done. So why wouldn't you?
And yeah, so in a couple years, maybe you revisit that 60, once he's got a couple more seasons under his belt. But right now, I think the best play is let's not wear the kid out.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, let's we got him for would hopefully have him for another, 10 to 15 years, if not more. Let's hang on to our investment. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we talked about Matt Duchene coming over to the Dallas Stars. Matt Duchene has been around for a while, drafted in 2009 from Colorado. He's been all over the league, Colorado, Ottawa, spent a little cup of coffee in Columbus. And then he's been in Nashville the last couple of years where, not the greatest showing, injured a little bit. His last couple of years in Nashville, total points were 42, 13, 86, and 56 last year. So, would you rather, Justin, have Matt Duchene have a career year, let's say above 90 points, but Dallas misses the playoffs by 1 point,
Oof.
or Matt Duchene just, you don't even know that he's on the team, but you're paying him. Shoot, I meant to look that up real quick. Stahl. Not
Well,
the Stahl brothers,
yes.
but I had it right here. Look at this contract.
As it is, like I'm already having trouble.
I believe it's $6 million, but so we'll just go with that. So would you rather Matt Duchene has a career of the year, but Dallas misses the playoffs by 1 single point, or Matt Duchene is barely there? You don't even realize he's on the team, and you essentially wasted $3 million for 1 year.
Oh, it's hard to say you're willing to give up $3 million, but I think that's a clear winner because the team takes such a step back if he has the career year. The Stars were one of the best teams in hockey last year. And if Vegas wasn't just so undeniable, I think Dallas raises the cup. I don't know how I can accept Dallas missing the playoffs just for one guy to have the career year. Cause like how many things need to go wrong, Joe,
Yeah.
for them to miss the playoffs. Yeah, I think I'm laying down the $3 million. You hate to see it happen for Duchene, but like, I think I'm laying down the $3 million.
Yeah. I mean, same. Even though, we wasted $3 million, but if we can get in the playoffs, then you always have a chance. So, I'm going to go with, we just lost. Yeah. I mean, hey, cool. We brought in this guy that we thought would, do something, but 10 million, whatever. I mean, not whatever. It's still $3 million, but you can figure that out. You'll still get in the playoffs.
Yeah. All right. So, sticking with Otter, let's assume that what you said is what they do. They reduce his games played. He cuts back to like 45. So would you rather they cut him back and he only plays 45, but the Stars barely eke into the playoffs at 8? And maybe we're looking at a first round exit here, but point being, they're considerably lower. Or would you rather they do the same thing, 61 games played, they really work the kid, and Otter runs out of gas again in the Western Conference Finals?
Well, I mean, I feel like that one's, it is and it isn't self-explanatory, I think, because damn. I'm going to say dang.
It seems easy on the surface, right? It seems easy on the surface.
Okay. So they lighten his load and they eke in at 8, right? But then,
right.
Okay. They lighten his load, they eke in at 8, or keep it the same and they first round exit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna go with the first. They lighten his load and they eke in at 8 because, again, you get in the playoffs, you have a chance. I mean, look at Florida. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals at number 8. So also, I feel like, obviously the definition of insanity. So if you just keep it the same and then first round exit, like I feel like that hits his confidence. I feel like that hurts his confidence more than being like, listen, Jakey boy, we're lightening your load. Not because we don't believe in you, but because we need you when we get to the playoffs. Whereas, like, okay, racehorse, let's go. You're the workhorse. and then first round exit, he doesn't perform because he's tired, whatever. Like, I feel like that hurts his confidence way more than telling him you're going to take a seat.
I think I agree with you. I think I'd rather they eke in because they're switching between goalies. I mean, then you got a full tank of gas here. Like you mentioned, Bob did not have a great regular season last year, but come playoff time, he was the hottest tendy in the league. Like, one of, anyway. Aiden Hill obviously would probably be one, but like Bob is in that conversation. If you let Otter rest, are they able to get past Vegas?
Hard to say.
It's hard to say. Now we're looking in the past, but like I would much rather eke in at 8, and if you take the L, at least Otter got a break this year. You didn't have to ride him till the wheels fell off.
Right.
And, maybe, next year or the year after, you can give him that workload. So yeah, I'm with you. I think you hate this. You have a chance if you eke in.
Well, since we've talked about Otter this whole entire subject, I'm going to give you another Otter question for the plus minus, but this does go for the team. So the team, the Dallas Stars, were third in the league last year for overtime losses with 14. Okay. Calgary was first, then San Jose, then Dallas with 14 overtime losses. So that is, that's 14 points left on the table, right? That they didn't get. So my question, so real quick, do math. What is 108 plus 14? Is that 122?
122. Yep.
Okay. So had they not had those 14 overtime losses, they would have had 122 points, which would have put them right below Boston as the second best team in the league. Okay. You with me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Otter had 11 of those overtime losses, 11 of those 14. Okay. So your question, plus or minus, Justin, if we go with the Lightning Otters load, right? Maybe he doesn't lose as often. Maybe the team doesn't lose in overtime so often. We don't know. But your plus minus, Justin, plus or minus 6 overtime losses next year for Dallas.
For Otter specifically.
I'm going to go. I said a lot of stats there. I'm going with the just in general.
Just in general. Okay.
The team. 6 overtime losses. I threw an Otter in there because we talked about how many games he started. He lost 11 of those 14 because he was playing almost every single game. So in this scenario that we talked about, they lighten the load, and plus or minus, they get better. They improve. Only 6 overtime losses. Over under 6.
I'm gonna go over, but not by much. I'm gonna go 8.
Okay.
I'm gonna go 8. I think it is interesting because now you're suddenly putting the non-mustached Murray and Wedgwood in overtime situations, and obviously in those overtime situations you want the guy, you want Otter. So it really just depends on who's in net on those days, but I do think they improve on what they did. So yeah, I think 8 seems right. About 3 games.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I'm also going to go with the over. I'm actually going to say 10. I think they're going to improve by 4.
Okay.
And that just might be Otter's, if he does lighten the load, especially there's a lot of back-to-backs throughout the season. You know what I mean? Like playing the same goalie, like I'm tired, man, So he's never going to say that, but performance-wise, you know what I mean? So I'm going to go with 10. So cool.
All right. talk about another team making moves. This is a team that has been on the move, the Detroit Red Wings. So let me switch over to the Detroit Red Wings.
Boop. Detroit. And we are now in the, I want to say, the third year of when I said a couple years ago in 3 to 5, they'll be a cup contender.
And I mean, theoretically, again, on paper, they bring in Kitty Cat. They just brought in Jeff Petry. So it's like you've got,
Comfort.
Yeah, you've made some moves. I want to start with one of the young kids though. I've always got my eye on this kid, Lucas Raymond, 20 years old, left winger, plays in 74 games last year, right? 17 goals, 28 assists, 45 points, only 45 points, but he is only 20, right?
Yeah.
So with the moves that they've made, I'm going to go simple, plus or minus 45 points for Lucas Raymond.
I'm going to go over because he played 82 the previous season and had 57 points. So 74 games, 45 points. I'm going to go over. I'm going to say he's going to get 60. I'm going to say 60. He plays the full season, gets 60 points.
I hope to God you're right. I don't know what it is. I haven't seen a lot of Wings games, but I love this kid. I'm really rooting for Lucas Raymond to do big things, and I would love nothing more. I'm with you, by the way, to actually answer my own question. I think if he stays on the ice, assuming he plays the whole season, I think he does go up and over that 45 points. I don't know what it is about 45 points for a 20-year-old that's so disappointing for me. Maybe it's just Detroit just in general underperforming. Yeah. But yeah, I'm with you. I want to go over.
So, I mean, they also brought in Alex Lyon from the Florida Panthers, who had an outstanding playoffs. So now they have two really, I would say, top goaltenders. Ville Husso, who has been proven, and Alex Lyon. I mean, James Reimer too, but he's old. But, in the past, like I love Ned, but Ned is not consistent. He hasn't really ever been consistent in goal, even when he played for the Carolina Hurricanes. So now I think they have two solid goaltenders, 1A, 1B in Ville Husso and Alex Lyon. So last year, just to give you a quick little stat skis, Ville Husso played 56 games. He won 26. He lost 22. 29 technically, because 7 overtime losses. Okay. With a 3-point, this is what I want you to remember the most: 3.1 goals against average for Ville Husso. Okay. And last year, obviously, we know, as I just said, Alex Lyon played on the Panthers. He started 15 games. He was 9-4-2. He had a 2.89 goals against average, is what I want you to remember. Okay. So would you rather Alex Lyon starts the majority of the games for Detroit, okay, but his goals against average is well over 4, let's say 4, or Ville Husso starts the majority of the games, but his goals against average is way up over 4.5. So I guess I'm projecting this question as two solid young goaltenders on a young team who generally show up pretty well, but they both end up being a little bit shaky. Who would you rather end up being more shaky in the goal this year? If you had to choose. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess I'd prefer Husso to be shaky. I hate saying that. Because we just spent money bringing Lyon in. I don't want to bring a guy in and then he just ends up being shaky the whole year. Like I'd much rather, since you didn't bring up bring up stats, I assume, sure, he doesn't play as much in this scenario, but like he looks good when he plays. I'd much rather Huso be shaky and the guy we just brought in play well than the guy we just paid money and brought in look shaky and the guy that we had last year play well and play less.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think I answered you correctly.
I think so. I mean, it was a weird question anyway, but I agree. I think I'd rather the new guy that we just spent money to bring in does better than the guy that we've had, essentially.
Yeah.
Same. I agree with you.
All right. So I already gave you a plus minus, right? So now I got a would you rather. So we just brought in here. I'm trying to find what their record was. 82 games, 35, 37, and 10. 80 points, right? Mm-hmm. So you've made the moves. Would you rather same record, 35, 37, 10, 80 points, but you get in the playoffs somehow? Or would you rather take a couple steps back? Wait, no, let me remove that. 35, 37, 10, same record, same exact record.
Okay.
You still missed the playoffs.
Okay.
Or would you rather, now this is even more improbable, you take a couple steps back, you lose a couple more games, but somehow I guess maybe the league is just that much worse, 75 points, and you eke in at 8.
In a theoretical world. I get what you're saying. Yeah, I'd rather miss the playoffs, but the team is progressing forward, because there's no point to get in the playoffs. You're just going to get bounced. Mm-hmm. I know we just said in the last scenario that, you get in, there's always a chance. But this team, you got to be – this specific team, you have to be rolling on all cylinders to get in the playoffs when you get in the playoffs, because otherwise it's not going to go well. It's not going to be a Florida Panthers scenario with this team. I fully believe that. You can't step backwards, number one. You spent too many years and too much money at this point to go backwards. Mm-hmm. So I'd rather miss, but move forward.
Yeah, I agree. Like, obviously, making the playoffs seems like a step forward, but if you lost 4 more games, did you really? It's really just the league got worse, your division got worse, and you did just well enough to get in.
Yeah,
exactly.
And in that division, the Atlantic, like, I don't know,
not happening.
Other than Boston, but even still, like we talked about that before. So, okay, so plus minus, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. So, speaking of the same, 80 points, they were 4 spots out. So they were 12th in the East. So they missed out on the wild card, last wild card slot by 4 spaces. Above them were Ottawa, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Florida. So plus or minus, actually, I'm going to do this. Sorry. Redo. Because I'm going to do it as division instead of the wild card. So they were 7th in the Atlantic. Okay. So teams above them, Ottawa, Buffalo, Florida, Tampa Bay, Toronto, Boston, respectively. So over under, Justin, Detroit 5th in the Atlantic.
Woof.
Taking out Buffalo and Ottawa.
God bless. Like, I'm excited about Detroit, but I don't know that that's going to happen.
11 points separates them from Buffalo, and 6 points separates them from Ottawa last year.
See, this is the thing that makes it hard, because like when I look at Detroit on paper, like, they got better. But did looking at the rest of that division, did they? Theoretically, Ottawa loses Kitty Cat. Does that take them a step back? Maybe. I think Buffalo is on the fast track to like way better. Oh, I'm gonna go under. I mean, I think maybe they might be in a dog race with Ottawa, possibly, but I don't think they're better than Buffalo for sure. I think the wild card here is what does Florida do? Has Florida gotten worse, and if so, worse enough to that where that is what propels Detroit forward? Maybe, but my gut says 6th for Detroit. Ah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really know how to answer my own question either because I really don't see them overtaking Buffalo or Ottawa at this point. I was initially thinking like, Florida could drop depending on how off-season, recovery is going for half their team.
Yeah.
We don't know what kind of Florida team we're going to get. I don't feel like there's going to be such a major drop-off though. So I feel like Detroit's really kind of just sitting in that 7th spot unless they can, overtake like a Tampa Bay, which that's near impossible.
Yeah.
But, even though we gave Boston their props, they could falter as well. So I know I'm just dancing around the subject here to answer my own question, but I want to say this is a push, really. But I'm going to pick. It doesn't make sense. I don't actually agree with this, really, but I'm going to actually say under. I'm going to say that they end up last in the Atlantic, but I don't really believe that. Because I don't think Montreal got any better, but I don't think Detroit has gotten better than any of those other teams that are ahead of them. So really, I want to say push, but you can't say that. So I'm going to say under.
Yeah. There we go. All right. That brings us
Time has come.
The Edmonton
to talk about the oil.
And where I want to lead, is something that, you know what? Actually, I'm going to lead there because all of this is a what if situation, Joe. This is all a what if situation, so I can play what if any way I like, right?
Okay, yeah, you can. Hell yeah.
So, would you rather? Let's do a little stats here. Your top 2 goalies were Stu and Soup. Stu plays 50 games, starts 48 of them with a 29-14, 29-19 record with the 5 overtime losses. Soup plays in 36 games, 34 starts, 21-9-4 record, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So would you rather, if you're the Edmonton Oilers, would you rather Stu does better? He steps in, he plays the same amount, but wins us more games. Let's say he won 29, he went 29-14. Let's give him 5 more. Let's go 34 wins next year. We see significant improvement from Skinner. Or would you rather they bring in John Gibson, who takes a majority of the work off of him, who has a really great John Gibson year?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, because I brought that up, I'm going to go with Gibby. I want to see Gibson come in. I would rather Gibson come in, take over, and, potentially lift that cup for the Edmonton Oilers, because I'm just sick of seeing them choke. Even though I don't even care about the Oilers, but it's
right.
Like, can you guys just not choke? You have the 2 best players on the squad. How do you still suck?
Yeah, this one, while you'd love to see Stu improve, right? And I gave him five more games. Let's not do that to the kid. Right? Stu is still young. He clearly is your guy going forward. let's get him some help. let's get a guy who can take the majority of the load.
And he can learn. He can learn from an actual good goaltender.
Do you think he's learning anything from Soup?
I don't think so.
No. Let's lighten that load. Let him sit 1 year behind Gibson, and suddenly you have a much brighter future with Stu. And I'm saying 1 year, but I'm assuming you get at least probably 2 out of Gibson. And I think that I can't believe a move like that has not been made yet for Edmonton. So I'm with you, man. Like let's bring in the vet. Let's let Stu get some rest.
Let's do it. Okay, this is an easy one. We're talking about Connor McDavid, arguably the greatest player alive right now. He has scored at least 100 points in all but 2 seasons. His rookie season, he only played 45 games, but he had 48 points in 45 games. So, like, he was on pace to hit more than 100 points, right? And then the 19 into COVID 2020 year, he only played 64 games, had 97 points. He would have had over 100 points. We can say that, right? But so in the last 2 seasons, 153, 123, 105. So over under, Justin, 160 points this year for Connor McDavid. 82 games played, 64 goals, 89 assists, 153 points.
So
over under 160 points.
It's hard to give him that because that's such a massive number, right? But looking at the trajectory of his career, you would have to go over, right? Like, it's hard to imagine him beating that kind of production. 64 goals, 89 assists. That's a lot, man.
It's a lot.
But
that's the most he's put up.
But the projection, the projection, 160 is a lot. So I'm going to go under, but barely. I'm going to go 150. I'm going to go give only 1 point under, 159. I'm going to say he's 1 point away from the push. I feel like I'm underselling him, but I think what I'm underselling is that 160. Or 160 is just a lot. I mean, 153 is a lot, but
yeah, it's a lot.
But 160 is a lot. It's only 7 points, but it's still 7 points. So yeah, I'm going under. I hate it, but I'm going under.
Well, so if my math is correct, hold on 1 second. Okay. So yeah, from last year to the year before, just for reference, in 21-22, he played 80 games, 44 goals, 79 points, 123 points. So in 2 more games this past year, he scored 20 goals and 10 more assists.
I know it should be the over, right? It's just a lot of points.
No, it really is. It truly is. But I am going the over. I'm definitely going to go the over. So I'm going to say he's going to get 6 more goals, but 15 more assists. So that's 21 more points. So I'm going the over 164, right? Or no, 174.
That's just so many.
It is. It's so many. But if anybody could do it,
absolutely. And no, I don't disagree. And to me, the safe money is the over. But it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. It is a lot. It is a lot. And there's a side conversation that I want to have about Connor McDavid at some point, being that he plays in the West, which has most of his career. I mean, up until the last 2 years, we can't do this right now because we've already gone almost an hour and a half. But just the point of this, everybody listening, I want to have a conversation about Connor McDavid playing in the West, why he has so many points, and if he played in the East, would he have
that many points because I've done some digging and I've seen all the goals he's scored against which teams, and they're mostly against the West, obviously, because he plays against the West. But when he plays against the East, he doesn't really have that many goals. So I'm just saying, I want to have a side conversation at some point about Connor McDavid and how many goals he scores. That's a side conquest. Anyway, moving on.
Maybe we'll get to that for when the preseason starts, just after all these combos. So I'm going to extend on your over under because Connor McDavid, as you mentioned, 82 games played, 64 goals, 89 assists, 153 points. Not the only 100-point getter. Leon Draisaitl, 80 games, 52 goals, 76 assists, 128 points. And Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, 82 games, 37 goals, 67 assists, 104 points. Between the three of them, just shy of 400 points. Plus or minus 400 points for those three, Joe.
Well, yeah, I'm going to go the over because I just said McDavid was going to get 20. So, yeah, over. So I guess I'd say, well, was it just shy under 400 or was it at 400?
So I'm going over under 400 because I think this is just shy. 53, 28, 4. I don't think quite equals 100. Yeah, 380 something. So
okay, well, yeah. So I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna say 415.
Yeah, I guess I should have thought about you did just give McDavid.
That's fine. It's okay.
So,
but I mean, the Nuge had a random year of awesomeness. So like, there's no telling what Nuge is gonna do.
Yeah. Plus, he was on ice all season. So
yeah, exactly. Like Nuge doesn't. I mean, the most he scored before that was 69 points 7 years ago. So like, I mean, that was kind of a career year for him. Obviously, like a random occurrence for the Nuge.
Yeah. All right.
Well, we've talked about all this points. Connor McDavid scoring like crazy. Draisaitl scoring like crazy. Nugent-Hopkins scoring like crazy. So let's just say the scenario that we talked about earlier. Gibson comes in and takes over the net for the Oilers. Okay, right? All right. So here's your scenario, Justin. Would you rather Stu has the net primarily, and the Stu has the net, and the Oilers lose again in the Western Conference Finals? Okay. Or it doesn't matter who's in goal. Let's say Gibson, whatever. The Edmonton Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup. Okay. But here's your but. Connor McDavid gets injured and he doesn't play. But you win the Stanley Cup.
Oh, obviously, God bless it, Joe. You've made me wish injury on two people. I think
I don't actually want Connor McDavid to get hurt. Nobody.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But like, if you're Edmonton, you need that step. You have to take that step. You hope it's nothing too threatening to McDavid and he comes back to form next year. But you got to lift that cup if you're Edmonton. And if it means we lift the, I mean, obviously you want McDavid there lifting the cup. Like that's why you drafted him. That's what you want. But you got to win the cup in Edmonton. You have to. You have to at least get there. So like I'm taking the cup, man. You got to lift the cup. It's the hardest thing to do in sports.
Yeah,
it's the hardest thing to do in sports. So I'm lifting the cup.
Yeah, I mean, you got to win the cup. That's the whole reason to play is win the cup. So yeah, I mean, it's a terrible scenario. I don't actually want anybody to get hurt again.
Twice today, Joe.
I know, but it fits. It fits in the conversation. Also, I have a black heart soul. Yeah, you gotta win. You're trying to win the cup. So, that's what we're going with. So
yeah. So speaking of tendies, they're pulling theirs. We got an empty net here. Just briefly, earlier this week, they finally named the NHL 24 cover. It's Cale Makar.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Just again, like and we had this conversation just about the game in general. Like, I still play 21 because the game hasn't gotten any better. Like, other than the roster updates, which I could just sign online and get the new rosters. But at this point, playing 21 career, a lot of the draft picks that we've seen come over the last few years are in the game. They just don't have a picture. So, like, I have no reason to play and spend $80 or whatever to buy the new game. And also, Cale Makar is a great player. You know what would have been great to put him on the cover 2 years ago when he won the Norris. Again, dropping the ball on not having the poster child that could be going on today's shows and across the board all over the world to promote the NHL, Matthew Clutch. You're dropping the ball.
That's
so
a
hard.
big time. That is a big time drop because that dude played so hard in the playoffs, heart and soul of that club.
Or how about this? Your expansion team, the Vegas Golden Knights, just won the Stanley Cup. Maybe put a guy that just won the Stanley Cup on the cover. Jack Eichel, Mark Stone, Jonathan Marchessault, Aiden Hill, Laurent Brosson. I don't know, a Vegas Golden Knight. Like, Phil Kessel. Honestly, like, dude, how do you put – it just makes no sense. It makes no sense, but also makes so much sense at the very same time for the NHL.
How do you not? You've got a franchise player, Connor Bedard, coming into the league.
I don't even care. Like, Cale Makar. Okay, Cale Makar. He was.
My guy, Jack Hughes. How? Like, come on. There's so many players that you could have gone with that maybe excites. Like, who are they pitching to right now? Basically us, yes, right? Like, who is playing a hockey game?
And you know what I'm not going to buy? That.
Yeah.
But also because, again, you haven't improved the game. Like,
right. Corey and I went halvesies on 23 last year, thinking, maybe it would give us an edge on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. And it really didn't. So, I mean, the biggest advantage for me was they have the new Shark sweaters.
Right.
Which is,
I mean, I want to play the Kraken. I want to do all those things, but it's like, why? I mean, I'm playing the same model on 21 that is being put out on 23 and now 24. So
yeah, this is just a huge missed opportunity to reach outside, especially like after last year, they put Sarah Nurse and Trevor Zegras on the cover, which I thought that was a step in the right direction.
I think it's a step in the right direction, sure, but you could have put Cale Makar on the cover last year. It would have made more sense.
Yeah.
Like, just coming off a Stanley Cup win, Norris Trophy, he was the talk of like, oh, this guy can be the poster child for the league. Like, okay, do it. And
nope.
You're too late. You're too late.
Nope. Big whiff, but big surprise. The NHL making a big whiff, Joe.
Not surprising at all. But if you want to send us some information, chirp at us. Maybe you like the Cale Makar on the cover. Chirp us at BarnChirpers Pod. Give us 5-star, like, subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff. Share it with your friends, your family, anybody in your beer league. If you're in a beer league, we'd love to talk to you. So send us a message at Beer Chirpers? BarnChirpers Pod. I started going way too fast. I'm trying to put that goal in the empty net there. Shout out Norfolk Admirals, yours and ours. We want to be on their team, and hopefully we can do something with them very soon. Next week, over under Would You Rather for a couple of teams that we already talked about today that were in side conversations. The Florida Panthers, the LA Kings. I can't wait to talk about PLD and how crappy it is. The Minnesota Wild and the Montreal Canadiens.
Ooh, that's an interesting one.
Week on the show. So with that said, keep that sweater nice and clean, Justin. That's a beautiful, beautiful sweater there. And we'll talk at all of you next week on the BarnChirpers Pod. Stick taps and sellies, boys. Clap it up.
Yes, and recording.